Followed we see that Rudy wanted to know the reason why he was driving with Ghislaine in the carriage. Suddenly, Ghislaine threw to him a letter from his father and asked him to read it out loud. In the letter was written that Paul first made fun of Ghislaine, calling her a gorilla. He also said her brain had been replaced with muscles. Ghislaine got angry, but Rudy managed to calm her down and said he was only joking. Then Rudy found out that his job is to teach magic to a noble girl. After that, Rudy also found out that his father had seduced Ghislaine before and also told Rudy that she is a master of sword fighting. Suddenly Rudy found out he would be separated from Sylphie for a while and he was angry with his father's decision. After that he reads on and Paul says Rudy isn't allowed to seduce Ghislaine because she is his girl. So Ghislaine told him to send the letter to Zenith. The next day he arrived at City of Roa and he was surprised about all the maids were beastmen. Followed Rudy was served grape juice and he thanked the servant. After that, he drank the delicious juice and Philip appeared. Rudy introduced himself and he learned the manners of the nobility. Then Philippe introduced himself and he said that he is Paul's cousin. Philip noticed that Rudy didn't know much about his task, so Philip said that he will first introduce him to his daughter and he will learn his tasks afterwards. However, Rudy was praised for being a strong mage in young age. Also, he warned about his daughter behave. Philip said his daughter doesn't like meeting new people. When Rudy entered Eris's room, he was immediately nervous about her arrogant appearance. He introduced himself to Eris, but she immediately started nagging him because he's 2 years younger. Rudy was immediately slapped by her and he got angry. As a result, he decided to slap her as well. Suddenly, Eris hit him in the face with a powerful punch and she turned into a wild animal. She said Rudy will regret slapping her and she hit him with all her strength. Rudy used wind magic and was able to distract her. He was scared and couldn't believe that his father sent him to a psycho girl who tried to kill him. Rudy was hiding under a table, and Eris tried to find him. In the evening, Philip laughed and asked Rudy if he wanted to give up his job. Rudy said he won't give up, because otherwise his father will laugh at him. Then Rudy found out none of the previous teachers wanted to teach Eris. Rudy considered to beat her up with magic. He knew how dangerous Eris was and tried to find another solution. So he had the idea to arouse Eris's interest in magic. Later he was tired, and he hoped his plan would work. He also prayed to the gods that he would not be beaten by her again. During the night, Rudy was tied up, and he wanted to show Eris that magic is very useful. Then Eris woke up and wondered why she was tied up. Rudy explained to her they had been kidnapped and that she could easily burn the bonds with fire magic. Meanwhile, Eris was angry and she complained. Suddenly an evil man appeared and Rudy was impressed by the staging. The man was angry with Eris and he kicks her against the wall. Followed, Eris tried to hit the man, but he dodged all the attacks and stamped her head into the ground. Rudy shocked, and he didn't know what was happening. Suddenly Rudy was also hit, and he still thought that everything was staged. Afterwards, Eris cried and she lay on the ground badly injured. Rudy wanted to help her, and he used healing magic to heal some of her injuries. Eris wasn't fully healed, because Rudy wanted to show her that she could heal herself through magic. However, 2 criminals discussed whether to kill Eris, thinking Rudy would be enough to extort money. Then Rudy realized that they were kidnapped by real criminals, and he could just kill them with magic. He decided against the idea because he didn't want to teach Eris the wrong value of magic. So Rudy created an escape route with his magic. Eris was still injured and couldn't escape without help. The men then tried to enter the room, but Rudy blocked the door with earth magic. Eris was desperate and she didn't want to be left alone. Time was pressing and she promised not to cause any trouble for Rudy. Suddenly, the bandits noticed that the children fled the room. Meanwhile, Rudy healed Eris completely and she was able to move again. Suddenly, Eris wanted to break her promise to Rudy and he wanted to leave her alone. When they heard the criminals' voices, she wanted to try to keep her promise for being silent. Then they hid and Rudy teased her a bit until the carriage drove off. After that, they drove back home and Eris was afraid of being followed. Suddenly they heard some horses, but they weren't Hunt. When they arrived in the city of Roa, Rudy was happy that Eris now wants to cooperate with him. Then Rudy saw the servants of Eris, her father, and they ran towards him. Suddenly Eris was kidnapped again, and Rudy immediately pursued the kidnappers. Rudy used powerful earth magic to block their path. The bandit then planned to kill Eris with a sword. Rudy wanted to attack the bandits with a fire spell. Philip's servant wanted to stop him and made him an offer. Rudy got a deal, which allowed him to get enough money for his school fees. Then Rudy said that the offer sounds very good, and he learned that the servant hated Eris. She always made him a lot of trouble in the house by wanting to kill her. The bandits thought Rudy was making a deal with him, but he refused. Rudy remembered his lonely life as an otaku in his old life. As a lesson from his old life, he didn't want to sacrifice Eris. So Rudy shot his fire magic in the air and caused a firework. Eris was surprised by Rudy's decision to save her. Then Rudy charged at the enemies and he attacked his enemies with earth magic. So he was able to free Eris from the criminals. The criminals were able to fend off his attack and tried to kill Rudy. When Rudy was able to pin an enemy to the ground, he was confident he could win with his fire magic. Suddenly, a sword flew at him and he knew he couldn't dodge the enemy's attack. In the meantime, Ghislaine rushed to Rudy's and Eris' rescue and she tried to save the two children with super speed. At the last moment, Ghislaine destroyed the sword and she began her attack against the opponents. The criminals didn't stand a chance against her and were immediately slashed by Ghislaine. Rudy was shocked and Ghislaine asked if there were more enemies. After that, Ghislaine wanted to know what had happened, but Rudy couldn't handle the situation of seeing dead people. Later, Philip's servant was caught, and they returned to Eris Manor. Philip was appalled by his daughter's condition. Ghislaine immediately pointed out that his servant was the culprit. Philip immediately ordered Ghislaine to take care of the criminal. Meanwhile, Eris was angry and horrified by the bad memories of the incident. Rudy understood that his plan had failed and he had to think about the fight. He knew that if Ghislaine hadn't appeared, he would have died in the fight. Rudy gave up and wanted to go home to his parents. Suddenly, Eris stopped him and she allowed Rudy to call her by her first name. She also wanted Rudy to stay in their home. So they went home and Rudy was very happy. The next day, Philip praised Rudy for saving Eris and motivating her to learn magic. Then Rudy found out that he was also kidnapped because he is a noble too. In addition, he should say that Ghislaine has taken care of the case because he didn't want to cause trouble for Rudy. After that, Hilda showed up and she met Paul's son. Rudy introduced himself and immediately stared at Hilda's large breasts. She ignored him and just walked away. Suddenly, Philip's father showed up and he wanted to get to know Rudy. He was surprised that Rudy had good manners unlike his father. Afterwards, Saros wanted to hear the story of how he saved Eris, but Rudy lied and told him Ghislaine saved Eris. Saros knew that Rudy saved his niece and got angry. Then Saros learned that his son was to blame for the lie. As a result, Philip was beaten up by his father because he wanted to give Rudy more credit. Philip then explained to him that he wanted to keep Rudy away from the public because he also had the blood of the Greyhearts. In addition, Rudy understood why Eris is so powerful, because her grandpa was a beast too. After that, Rudy was asked to teach his niece magic, because she would be happy. Rudy resisted, and replied that she should ask him by herself. Suddenly Eris was called to them, so Eris immediately appeared, and Saros politely ordered his niece to ask Rudy for magic lessons. She listened to her grandfather's words and tried to ask Rudy for a favor. She was very arrogant, and her grandfather yelled at her to be polite. Suddenly, Eris tried to ask him for magic lessons with a funny pose. Rudy was confused, but Saros was proud of his niece. Then Rudy learned, Saros has a penchant for beastmen, and that's why Eris made such a funny pose. The next morning Rudy had sword training with Eris, and Ghislaine taught them diligently. Then in the afternoon, Eris and Ghislaine were taught magic together, and Eris had a lot of fun. So many days passed, and Rudy taught Ghislaine math, and Ghislaine was very grateful. Meanwhile, Eris was messing around, and she caused a huge problem with a fire spell. Rudy immediately put out the fire and wanted to teach her math, but Eris ran away. Then Rudy looked for Eris to teach her reading and writing. Ever since Rudy became her home tutor, she tried to escape him every day when she needed to practice reading and writing. Later, Rudy found her sleeping in a barn, and he noticed how cute she looks while sleeping. Rudy tried to wake her up, but she didn't woke up. So Rudy had a naughty idea, and he massaged her small breasts. She didn't wake up, and he had another idea. Rudy wanted to steal her panties to wake her up. Suddenly Eris woke up, and she noticed Rudy wanted to steal her panties. She immediately punched Rudy in the stomach with all her strength. In addition, Eris showed her Bruce Lee skills that immediately severely injured him. Rudy was overwhelmed by her attacks and he couldn't get up. Later, Rudy cried in front of Ghislaine. He was just acting, because he hoped Ghislaine would find a solution to get Eris motivated for studying. As a result, Eris studied diligently, but quickly lost interest in learning. Following, Ghislaine told her a story about her life as adventurous. She was able to get the attention of Eris with her story. Then Ghislaine explained that after Rudy's parents got married and left the group, she always had problems with money because she couldn't count. One day, she didn't even have money left for food, and she ate excrement from a monster. Rudy was shocked, and Ghislaine wanted to learn math because of this reason. As a result, Eris was motivated to continue learning, and Rudy thanked Ghislaine for the great support. In the afternoon, Rudy trained with Eris swordsmanship and Ghislaine tried to give them advice to improve their skills. Rudy couldn't defend against Eris' attacks because of her gorilla power. Following this, Eris used all her power and she beat Rudy with her wooden sword. After sparring, Eris said he should train more, and she looked down at him for being weak. After that, Ghislaine noticed that Rudy often shied away from enemy attacks. He replied that he was scared and was slapped by Eris. Eris said that she looks down on him for these reasons. Ghislaine didn't know how to get rid of his fear. Then Eris wanted to keep training with Rudy to make him stronger. In the evening, Rudy wanted to go to bed immediately, but he still had to prepare for tomorrow's lessons. Then he wondered what Sylphie was doing at the moment. The next day, Rudy taught Eris reading and writing, but she was acting weird. He forgot to schedule a break in his class, and she got angry. A few days later, Eris wanted to go into town, and Rudy hoped that she wouldn't be kidnapped again so that Ghislaine would have to rescue her. Then Rudy complimented her cute outfit, but she hit him on the head. Later they looked at the city of Roa together, and Rudy was impressed by the city walls. However, they were in the city to have fun. Suddenly Rudy was approached by a man, and he wanted to sell him something valuable. The seller showed Rudy a magic potion, which allowed him to seduce all women. Unfortunately, Eris interrupted him and he couldn't buy the love potion. Then Rudy explained to her that he compares the prices of the items to make money with dropshipping. Eris knew nothing about e-commerce, but Ghislaine would have made a good businesswoman. Then Eris tried to prove that she is also a businesswoman, but Rudy knew she had no idea about money calculations. Later, Rudy looked at the prices of books, and Eris offered to buy him the books with the money of her grandfather. Rudy noticed Eris had no understanding of money. So Rudy taught her the lesson of rich dad, poor dad, and she understood the value of money. Also, Rudy understood she just wanted to be nice. So he wanted to teach her even more about money. She was happy and blushed. After that, Rudy saw a floating fortress in the sky. Rudy learned the Perugius fortress had defeated the demon god Laplace. In addition, he learned more about Perugius and the heroes who owned the fortress. Suddenly Rudy remembered. He had heard the story from the book his parents had read to him. Rudy was surprised by the story and wanted to learn more about the floating sky fortress. The next day, Eris had a lot of fun studying, and she bought Rudy a present. He got a love potion as gift and was shocked. Rudy was nervous and didn't want to tell Eris that she bought him a love potion. When Rudy wanted to leave, Ghislaine stopped him. Rudy unintentionally dropped the love potion and he unintentionally called the potion by the name. Then Rudy tried to run away, but he was caught immediately. Eris tickled him to learn more about the love potion and he was punished.